What is the offseason plan in the defensive backfield for the 49ers in 2022? Free agency, in-house and outside free agents, NFL draft, cornerbacks, safeties. Coming up on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker with you here at BD Peacock, at Eric_Crocker on Twitter. We're talking DBs. This is Crocker's specialty. Crocker's doing Locked On NFL Draft daily that you got to check out as well, talking about prospects for all teams and all positions. But today we're going to focus on the 49ers, and we're going to focus on DBs. And I know Croc's been putting in a ton of film work behind the scenes to break down those defensive backs. We're going to get some of his favorites later on. But Croc, I think we've got to start with the roster as it is currently constructed. I want to start big picture when it comes to the DBs and specifically the corners, because I know you've defended the 49ers corners all season long. Even earlier on in the season when they were having a bunch of problems with all the pass interference penalties, they cleaned a lot of that up. The defense got better as the year went along. We saw Mosley come back, and that really helped the 49ers. Then we saw the emergence of Ambry Thomas. Didn't play at all. Then all of a sudden, play little. Didn't look great. Looked a little bit better. But really, even with a lot of questions in the backfield on defense and with those corners, Croc, you weren't worried that much. And you're right when you say it never really hurt the 49ers all that much, but that also shouldn't keep the 49ers from trying to improve where they can, right?
So there's a couple of different ways to look at this. All right, one way is, I don't think that the cornerbacks, and I said this for a while. I don't think the cornerbacks were the reason the 49ers were going to lose the game. All right, now some people could point to certain instances where, hey, these two guys had a good game. Look at this outcome. Hey, this happened. Look at this outcome. But if you look at most of those games, if the offense just does their part, then the 49ers cornerbacks aren't the reason they lose. When you give up 20 points to the most explosive team, one of the most explosive teams in the NFL, to the Rams, 20 points, that's holding them to 12 points below their average for the season. Your cornerbacks, if you lose that game, regardless of two guys getting 100 yards, are not the reason you lose. The reason you lose that game because your offense doesn't score enough points. Same with like the game against Tennessee. Okay, oh man, A.J. Brown, he had 145 yards and a touchdown. Cornerbacks suck. Well, it took everything in them to get over 200 yards passing. I think they had 208 yards passing in that game. Like, that's not earth-shattering. Your corners aren't necessarily hurting you outside of one really kind of bad drive that game. So the way I viewed it was just, I feel like there are other things that are hurting the 49ers more than the corners. So can you improve on the corner? Of course. But I don't think it's necessarily as simple as people think to just, oh, I'm going to get this guy, and all of a sudden we're just going to shut people down. I don't really think there's a shutdown corner in the NFL like that.
It's not like it used to be. There's not a lot of corners that are shutting anybody down. I think rules hurt cornerbacks in this day and age in the NFL. I think 49ers did it right with their philosophy of building the defensive line first and having that help out your defensive backs. That doesn't mean you can't have more talented DBs. And what would it look like if the 49ers had both dominant defensive line and dominant corners, right? So that would be pretty fun too. Like 20 points is cool. Holding them to 12 points be even better, right, Croc? So
it would, but how realistic is that versus explosive teams? Like, at some point, regardless of who you have, something is going to crack. You know, there's going to be a leakage somewhere, regardless of who your cornerbacks are. I mean, you can look at the New England Patriots. I think they played well all season. They get into the playoffs. They give up 47 points to the Buffalo Bills, and Josh Allen had more touchdown passes, 5, than incompletions, 4. All right, more touchdown passes and incompletions. Where everybody wants J.C. Jackson.
Yeah.
How much did he help in that game? Whereas you look at the 49ers.
Corner on the free agent market. And
right,
they got bombed on still.
They got bombed on. And you look at the 49ers and how they played. They gave up 47 points combined. So the amount that the Patriots with J.C. Jackson gave up in one playoff game, the 49ers gave that up in every playoff game that they played in combined. So I just look at it like, man, you can do a whole lot worse. I think the 49ers actually have the right philosophy, and other teams should probably tailor their kind of schematics towards that. Hey, maybe we don't have to be great on the back end or at the cornerback position. Hey, if we just have guys that are serviceable starters and we have good coverage guys at linebackers and guys that can get after the passer up front, that's enough to limit what offenses are doing. And the 49ers did that this whole year. They played 20 games and gave up 300-yard passing games. 3. I feel like that's unheard of in today's game. I'd be curious to find out if anyone else in the NFL, any other defensive secondary did that.
You look at the list of quarterbacks that the 49ers played against. They played against Kyler Murray. One of those Arizona games was Colt McCoy. They played against Stafford 3 times, once in the playoffs, twice in the regular season. They played against Aaron Rodgers. They played against
Twice.
Joe Burrow. They played against Dak Prescott, right? And yeah, there was a lot of worry, but the corners were never really that much of a problem. And a lot of that is because of the scheme, I think. A lot of that is because of the defensive line helping them out. And a lot of it is because a guy like Emmanuel Mosley is a really good player. And I think toward the end of the season, once Ambry Thomas started figuring things out, he started playing pretty well too. So are you okay going into next season if it's Ambry Thomas and it's Emmanuel Mosley? Those are your starters. Those are your 2 best cornerbacks on the roster. Are you cool with that, Crock?
I would not be all in on that. And what I mean by that is I'm going to address it some way, somehow, the cornerback position. Now, I'm not like most of the fan base where it's like, you got to go and get a shutdown guy. I know it's just hard to get that. But I'm going to put resources out there to, at the very least, push guys like Ambry Thomas. Emmanuel Mosley, I think I'm good there. But Ambry Thomas, I'm not quite sure yet. I don't know if he's a legit starter for a full season. So I'm going to bring in either a low-price free agent to just push him, someone that I feel like can challenge him for that starting spot, or maybe a draft pick in mid to late rounds that I feel like can come in and challenge him as well. And if he is the best guy for the job, he'll win that battle. If he's not, then obviously that's something that you'll have to address moving forward. But I feel like you have to, at the very least, give him that opportunity.
Yeah, I want to see some competition back there. And I wouldn't be against bringing someone in who's really pushing Ambry Thomas. And I wouldn't be against bringing someone in who's clearly ahead of Ambry Thomas day one, and Ambry Thomas is pushing that guy. And you have some nice depth there with Ambry Thomas being your number 3 outside corner, maybe some young talent behind them developing. And it would put you in a really good place, I think, to cover you for injury and feel like, okay, we're going to go into the season. We're going to be even better than we were last year on defense.
Right. If the 49ers went out and they're like, hey, we're going to pay $17 million a year to J.C. Jackson, you would not hear me complain about the signing. I'd be like, hell yeah. He takes the ball away. He plays good defense. He's a legit man coverage guy. I'd be all for it. I think my pushback to a lot of, our listeners and, people even covering the 49ers is I don't know how much of a difference that would make statistically, aside from potentially taking the ball away more. But if you look at the overall numbers, will teams be any better or worse on third downs? Not sure. Maybe, but maybe not, because I think overall the 49ers played fairly well and limited a lot of offenses. Again, Cowboys had the most explosive offense in the league, most like yards per game, most points per game. 49ers held them to 17 points. And Dak Prescott, it took everything in him to it took like that last weird drive where they were in prevent defense to get over 200 yards. And that's with CeeDee Lamb, Wilson was playing at a high level, and Amari Cooper. And they still struggled to really put up a lot of production in the passing game. So how much better does J.C. Jackson? They will be better. And I do think he does a good job taking the ball away. But I don't know. It's hard for me to explain what I'm thinking in my head. I don't know if it'll make the difference that the fans think.
We will get into the free agents next. Jason Verrett, K'Wan Williams, Josh Norman, Jaquiski Tartt at safety. We'll talk about which free agents the 49ers should prioritize in the secondary and look at some other free agents on the market the 49ers could bring in, including some of the top of the market, higher price guys like J.C. Jackson, and if those make sense coming up. But first, let's talk Bet Online. Football season is over, but that doesn't mean you have to stop betting on football. We've got Super Bowl futures. You want to bet on those San Francisco 49ers at 14-1 to win the Super Bowl next year with Trey Lance and his 4,000 yards passing and his 1,000 yards rushing that he's going to put up if you extrapolate his games from 2021 is 17. That's what it would look like. Niners might be in there with young Trey Lance. Maybe it's Tom Brady quarterbacking the 49ers. You can bet on which quarterbacks are going to go where on different teams. You can bet on NFL draft props as well at betonline.ag. And of course, hoops is in full swing. Pro and college basketball, the NCAA tournament coming up in March. Latest odds, totals, player performance props. BetOnline.net is the number one spot for all your sports betting needs. And not only betting at BetOnline, it's a good spot for sports scores and news as well this season. Basketball, football, betonline.net is your source for hockey, boxing, UFC, Vegas casino games as well. So head over to the website today, use your mobile device, learn more about all the trends in action at BetOnline, where the game starts. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen here on Locked On 49ers. For your second listen, don't forget to check out Crocker doing the Locked On NFL Draft podcast, Locked On NFL channel, doing big things, bringing you all the stories every day, just like Peacock and Williamson, all of your NFL news. We're doing a lot of top fives. We're talking draft. We're talking free agency. We're talking quarterback trades, the quarterback carousel episode coming up on Peacock and Williamson, which is going to be a lot of fun. So all those podcasts are free and available wherever you get your podcast. By the way, congratulations, Crock. Not only is Locked On 49ers really high up in those Apple podcast charts I checked out today, you got yourself and you got me Locked On NFL Draft, just barely eclipsed Locked On 49ers as well, the two biggest podcasts on the network right now. Eric Crocker is co-hosting both of those, Locked On NFL Draft and Locked On 49ers. So congrats to you, Crock, and ahead of some really big name podcasts as well.
Yeah, I was excited to see ahead of, I think it was Colin Cowherd.
It was
Skip Bayless. Bayless. It was Skip.
Good Morning Football, the NFL's flagship morning show. A ton of big shows out there that both Locked On 49ers and Locked On NFL Draft are ahead of right now in those charts. So it's really cool, and we appreciate all the listeners out there. We always appreciate all the thumbs ups and subscribes that you hit, and when you let your friends know about these shows.
Yeah, real quick, I kind of want to get back to a little bit something we were talking about last segment. I want to make it clear, because how fans, they'll get at me like, you don't know what you're talking about. I do value the cornerback position. When you watch the 49ers not having the best of corners, right? Having to play guys like Josh Norman, not part of the plan. That's somebody that got off the street. Having to play Embry Thomas when they did, I don't know how ideal it was. I think maybe they're kind of forced into that. I think if you ask the 49ers, they would love to have Jason Verrett and Emmanuel Mosley all year. And I think you are more confident what you have at the cornerback position. But even when it was less than ideal with Dante Johnson, Josh Norman, all those guys you had out there, I still did not think that the reason the 49ers were going to lose was because of the corners. And they'd have weird moments. They'd have weird stretches. But I challenge all 49er fans to watch teams around the league and look at what their corners are doing throughout games. And watch the Kansas City Chiefs give up 200 yards in the game to Jamar Chase. Watch Jalen Ramsey get bombed on for 150 yards and a touchdown in the Super Bowl. Watch Jalen Ramsey get bombed on by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think those things are going to happen, and the 49ers aren't immune to it, just like the rest of the NFL. How do you kind of, work around that? And I think the 49ers found the recipe. Serviceable guys, good coverage underneath, good pass rush. So that's just kind of, I just want to make, but if they went and got a JC Jackson, I wouldn't, obviously I would like it.
Would you agree to my theory that similar to an offensive line, you just need 5 good players, and having one really good guy on one side and a traffic cone on the other side isn't going to help you as much? You just it's a unit. Let's get 5 good players and fix the worst spot more so than trying to go over the top and spend a whole bunch of money on one superstar player at one of those 5 positions.
Well, yeah. I mean, unless you can get the best player in the NFL with the 3rd and 5th round pick,
You don't want to say no to those either, but yeah.
So unless you can get that, and, have to make him the highest paid tackle in the league, that's whatever. But offensive line, it's one of those positions where defensive linemen are freakish coming out now, and it's hard to be just this lockdown tackle and nobody's going to get by you. At some point, you're probably going to, lose a rep. And even with the best of them, even Trent Williams, there were times that he lost a rep. Now, obviously, late in the year, he's playing on one leg. But even prior to that, there were times where it was like, Trent Williams got beat. Now, it didn't happen much. He's the highest graded player ever in PFF history. But, those things are going to happen as well. So, yeah, if you just had a solid offensive line across the board, I think you'd be better for that. I think it's the teams that have really bad offensive line. And I think that it is comparable to the cornerback position because it's just hard to find really good offensive linemen. Just like it's hard to find really good cornerbacks. But like you said, if you can just get guys that are serviceable and do just enough good enough job, you can ride that even to a Super Bowl like the Cincinnati Bengals did.
Let's start with Jaquiski Tartt, free agent. And we had talked about earlier when we did a quick overview of all the 49ers in-house free agents. I think we came to the conclusion that the 49ers are okay to let Jaquiski Tartt walk. Not that he's not a good player, not that it wouldn't be also fine if they brought him back, but it feels like they've got some young players who can play, and maybe that's where the Niners need to go into the draft even more so than corner. Maybe it's time to address a safety at somewhat of a high pick, maybe a day 2 pick, and try to get better there, and maybe have some coverage of a guy who can play some free safety. If Jimmy Ward's to get hurt, and then a secondary question to this when we're talking about the safety position, if Tartt walks, does that mean you have to extend Jimmy Ward or restructure his contract in some sort of a way to ensure that you're in good standing with him, because you don't want to lose, back-to-back seasons. You don't want to lose 2 of your veteran safeties in the middle of the field.
I love Jimmy Ward. I love his mindset. I love his attitude. But both safeties, I think they are getting a little bit older, right? Both guys are pushing 30 years old. That's when the decline starts a little bit. Now, it might not hurt him as much being a safety, but I do think Jimmy Ward, a lot of his value is being able to not just be a 2-high safety or a single high guy, but he does a tremendous job playing in the box. He does a tremendous job playing slot. Matter of fact, I saw a tweet from, I believe it was Tony Jefferson, maybe, calling Jimmy Ward the most underrated safety in the league. Said that he is for sure an all-pro and that is not getting talked about enough. And I think a lot of it has to do with the versatility that Jimmy Ward plays with. But again, how versatile will he be as he continues to age a little bit? That'd be a question in the sense of extending him or paying him more down the line.
Yeah, and part of his the bonus of having someone like Jimmy Ward is the versatility, but also the athleticism and the speed. And he's not a very big guy either. So he's not like he's going to throw his muscle around as he starts to slow down as a player. So that would be somewhat of a worry for, a guy that you're going to utilize in center field, utilizing man coverage sometimes as well. But Jimmy Ward's absolutely been a really good player. And I would be shocked if the 49ers wanted to lose both those guys back to back. But I feel like Jaquiski Tartt could be walking out the door. Tavon Wilson as well didn't really show up much for the 49ers this year. He's an unrestricted free agent, but just how cheap he could be, and we'll see if there's a market for Tartt. Maybe he just doesn't cost that much, and the Niners can bring him back pretty easily as well. But let's talk cornerback. Jason Verrett, and I want to shout out Barnaby, who's a frequent emailer into the show, and he was asking about 1-year show me deals recently, specifically about Jason Verrett and about running back Raheem Mostert. And I've talked about that in the past. I think you kind of lowball those guys, low dollar amount, 1-year deals. If they find more elsewhere, more power to them. I don't know if Jason Verrett's going to want to come back from another injury. I don't know how much you want to count on Jason Verrett this year, but if he wants to come back and try it again, I think you got to throw something his way, and I don't think it's going to be very much money.
Yeah, well, first you talked about letting some guys walk, whether it's Jason Verrett or even the Jaquiski Tartt, and they did that last year. A lot of people forget about that. They let Kawan Williams walk. They let Tartt walk, and they let Jason Verrett walk and test the market and see what's out there. Now, very, interesting circumstances last season. That was when the cap was like way down. So teams didn't have a whole lot of money to maybe give these guys, especially after the years that they were coming off of. I think all 3 came off of good years. Tartt obviously missed some games, but I see them maybe taking that same approach this year. Hey, test the market, see what's out there. And if we can get you back on a veteran minimum, bring them back. At the very least, have some depth. But I do think at some point you have to start to figure out how to potentially upgrade. I think Tartt is probably the hardest one. I know most people say Kawan Williams, but I think Tartt, just his rapport with Jimmy Ward, obviously those guys going back all the way to high school, playing with each other. He does so much. He's a versatile safety. We talk a lot about Jimmy Ward. Tartt as well. He's typically in the right spot. So I think, you don't want to play with fire, but they probably are all guys that you let test free agency and see if maybe you could potentially get them back on the low.
Yeah, so you would put K'Wan Williams in that, also a free agent. I think I would put him in that same category and let him test the market. If they make money, more power to them, and infuse a little bit of youth into the secondary. Josh Norman, too, 35 years old. I'd actually be surprised if they brought Josh Norman back, right? If you're going to bring back a veteran, bring back somebody who's going to be competing for a starting job. And I don't get the vibe that the 49ers are going to be super trying super hard to bring back Josh Norman.
Nah. Anybody if there's one guy, I think this guy, Dante Johnson, he'll probably be back because, again, just so much versatility. And I think 49er fans actually have a lot more respect for Dante Johnson now as opposed to previous years. I don't think I'd say most competent 49er fans, 90% of them, will probably be okay with Dante Johnson coming back, to fill that sixth corner spot. And I think it's a necessity because he's not just a corner. He can play slot, he can play outside, and he can play safety as well in the pinch.
Dante Johnson played 24% of the snaps last year, which is a little bit surprising. And he can play outside, he can play inside. And so I think it's a solid depth piece, and you try to add some more depth as well. And we'll see who the 49ers end up bringing back from that group. But I wouldn't be shocked if they all walk, and I wouldn't be shocked if, most of them are brought back if they can have some team-friendly deals. But you can't overspend on, 30-plus-year-old free agents. And I think the safety positions where the 49ers could possibly bring in some youth. And if they do spend and really spend in free agency and bring in an outside player, maybe it is at corner. Let's go through those corners one more time. And it's not just the top heavy guys. It's not just the big money free agents like Gilmore and JC Jackson. There's a couple other guys that play a lot of zone coverage that I think might be a fit for the 49ers in free agency if they wanted to go that route as well next. Plus, some of Crock's favorite draft prospects in the secondary as well next. Have you tried Built Bar Puffs yet? We're talking about the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. Fluffy, marshmallowy puffs. They're not just a protein bar. They're a treat, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate. Flavors like cinnamony churro puff, coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie. These are going to be your new favorite protein bars. And just like all other Built Bars, they're low in calories. Most Built Bars have only 130 calories. Low in sugar. Most Built Bars contain only 4 grams of sugar, 4 grams of net carbs, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. So you can feel good about what you're eating, and you won't wreck your diet when you reach for a snack. Get rid of all those other snacks in your house and replace them with Built Bars. So some old flavors that I love too: mint brownie, coconut almond, peanut butter, cookies and cream. If you're not sure what flavor you want, get a mixed box of Built Bars and get a low-calorie, high-protein treat to replace those candy bars around your house. And best of all, you can get 15% off with promo code LOCK15. Go to Built.com. Use promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your order. That is promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right, Crock, let's look at the free agent market really quick before we get to some of these prospects. We've talked a lot about J.C. Jackson and Stephone Gilmore. We had a question about them earlier on in the week as well in the mailbag. I think short term, if the money turns out like Pro Football Focus projects, and J.C. Jackson's going to be the top guy in the market, he's younger, he could make a whole bunch of money. Sounds like, judging by a social media post from J.C. Jackson, that the Patriots haven't really even talked to him that much and might not be that interested in bringing him back. Maybe they just know they're going to slap a franchise tag on him, or maybe they're not even going to do that and they're just going to let him walk, which is a very Patriot-y thing to do. But you're talking, getting close to $20 million a year, 4 years, $18 million per for J.C. Jackson. If it's $4 million per year less and only a 2-year deal as projected by PFF for Stephone Gilmore, I think that makes a lot more sense. And then he would then be off the books and be a no-doubt starter, right? Like that would solidify the secondary right there with a no-doubt starter on one side, Mosley on the other side, Ambry Thomas backing them up on both sides. You got Diamador Lenore coming in that could play some nickel for you. You would have Dante Johnson that could play a little nickel, play a little outside, and you'd really start to give yourself some depth, and it would be pushing from the top down on the depth chart rather than from the bottom up. So I like the idea of Stephone Gilmore. I don't know if it's likely or not, and he is a better man corner than a zone corner. There's a couple of other names in free agency though that could
Hold
make
on,
some
he can. So I think because they play for the Patriots, both of them, it's in your head you think man, but a lot of times they just did that on third downs. They did do quarter stuff, they did do too high stuff, but yeah, like where they make their money and why they have the reputation that they have is definitely because of the man ability they have. And if you are a 49ers team who's looking to get better on third down and coverage and you want to run more man, especially when you have Emmanuel Mosley, I think he's strong at that. I actually think Ambry Thomas, he's a strong man guy. But, just have those guys and get nasty in there. Yeah, Stephon Gilmore, J.C. Jackson, they move the needle for me. And it would have to be those type of guys to really feel like I'm upgrading over what the 49ers already have.
The only other potential big dollar free agent, and he's coming off of an injury, and this could be a situation where it's a 1-year show me deal, but for a lot of money, Carlton Davis. He's projected to get a 1-year, $17 million contract. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a lot of things to do as far as bringing players back. And they've got some high-priced players already on the roster. And they've got Chris Godwin and some other guys they might want to deal with. And there's a potential for Carlton Davis to hit the free agent market. Do you do Carlton Davis on a 1-year contract and see what you get from him, who's a big-bodied corner who would seem to fit scheme-wise for the 49ers?
I like Carlton Davis. Not the fastest of guys, but I think he fits the receiver mode in the NFC West very well. Really shoot the NFC in general. As long as he doesn't have to go up against guys like Tyreek Hill all day, I think he's solid. He's a pure man guy, play off, play quarters, knows how to. I think he fit right into a 49ers defense. Now, 1 year, $17 million, it's kind of steep, but overall, yeah, he's legit. So did he not play in that divisional round game?
I don't think he did. No. I think he was out for the year, right?
That's good because I was going to talk about how Cooper Kupp was touching him and having a guy like him did not matter. But I can't use that now because he wasn't out there.
He torched the 49ers too.
Yeah, torches everybody.
See. Carlton Davis tore his quad. Oh, another quad too in October. Yeah, he missed the next 7 games. Oh, no, he did come back.
Uh-oh.
I think he did come back. No, I don't remember him being. I don't know. I could have swore he was out for the whole season, but he might have been back for the playoffs. I don't remember seeing him out there. How about this for a zone cornerback, though? He's been around for a while, 32 years old. Casey Hayward is a free agent, and he might cost a lot less than those other guys we talked about, maybe $6 million per year. Casey Hayward, does he move the needle for you for some competition for Ambry Thomas?
I like Casey Hayward. I think he had a really good year with the Raiders. Definitely someone I wouldn't mind having. There's something off about his swag that I just can't get over. It's just, I just can't unsee it. I'm just like, gosh, he does just, it's not aesthetically pleasing.
You can't not find a guy because you don't like his swag, right?
Man, if I had to choose between, if all things being equal between Casey Hayward and Davis, who maybe play similar, I would go with Davis just because there's aesthetics. It just looks much better. Here are a couple guys that I do like.
Okay.
And I fit. One, Steven Nelson, who can play outside and nickel. So I like that versatility. 49ers might have a hole at nickel, having a guy who can do both. And, sometimes you can have a guy who starts outside and then in nickel situations slide inside. Steven Nelson gives you that type of versatility if he can beat out Ambry Thomas on the outside. And then you have, gosh, can't think of his name right now. And I should have it up still.
I got a couple of names for you while you're thinking about that one. What about DJ Reed?
That's another one. Give you some.
Reed, who's now a free agent with the Seahawks.
Give you some versatility there.
You play a little inside outside. Bryce Callahan from the Broncos. A little speed on the outside with Dante Jackson, who's an unrestricted free agent from the Carolina Panthers.
That's somebody I'd be interested in, but I know he doesn't have the reputation for being physical, and Kyle Shanahan doesn't like soft players, clearly. So if you're not going to go out of your way to really get dirty and throw your body around, I don't think Kyle's going to like you too much.
All right, I'll throw a few more names out there because we got to get to some draft prospects and some of your favorites there. Patrick Peterson, is he washed? Rasul Douglas, Joe Hayden, another older player. At this point, you might as well bring back K1 Williams when you get this far down the free agent list. Keller Witherspoon, a couple of ex-49ers on the list.
A guy like Mike Hughes.
Chris Harris, longtime slot guy. Kind of in the same mold as K1.
Yeah, a little old, but yeah, he's coming off of making.
Oh, and Kyle Fuller. Kyle Fuller's a name that's been thrown out there for a long time. He's been around a little bit, 30 years old. Probably won't cost big money.
Yeah, I bring one of those guys in there. Kyle Fuller, I wouldn't be opposed to bringing him in.
Just bringing a veteran for competition. That would be more of the try to push Ambry Thomas more than bring in a legitimate, like a for sure starter over him. But they need depth. I think they do need to bring in a body there, someone who could start games, whether it's ahead of or behind Ambry Thomas next year.
You don't want to have to play Josh Norman.
Right, exactly. You don't want to have to be dumpster diving all of a sudden in October, getting guys off the street. Yeah. All right, Crock. Prospects. Your favorite draft prospects. If the Niners with their first pick 61, or maybe with a pick they get from Jimmy Garoppolo higher in round 2, who's your favorite guy that fits the 49ers that could be available on day 2?
Oh, fits the 49ers. See, that's a tough question because I don't know. Do the 49ers want to be more aggressive and play more man? They did a lot of it in preseason, kind of went away from it when the season came around. If they do want to do some of that, a guy who could potentially slide, and if he does slide, that's not a good thing. It's probably because he doesn't run well. But Roger McCreary out of Auburn, I think he's really good. But I think there's a chance he slides because he's not the longest corner. You know, he measured in at 5'11", 186, so that's already slight. And then his arm length was like 28 and a half inches or something like that, which is not ideal. You know, having that short of arms. Teams
28?
want 30.
Did you say 28?
It was like, that's like 28 really and a half, maybe 29. I mean, when you hear like 31, we know that's short. 28 and a half or 29, like that's ridiculously short. And I think that's going to knock him down. But he plays really well. If you just watch his film and don't know that he has these short ass arms, you're gonna be like, you know what? That's T-Rex arms. That's a really good corner. Versatile, can play outside, inside, can play man coverage all over the field. If you have a guy where it's like, hey, I want you to go shadow this receiver, he is tremendous at those things. So he's somebody that could potentially slide just because he's not very big from a weight standpoint, and his arms are really short. And if he doesn't run blazing fast, I think NFL teams are going to knock him down some boards. If he's there late second round or in the middle of a second round, if you get a pick for Garoppolo, I think he's good. He's good. I really like him. That's the first one that kind of stands out to me.
I haven't watched a lot of him, but he sounds like, just from your scouting report, sounds like a player that teams are going to try to force into the slot just because he doesn't have a lot of length.
Right, and they did that at the Senior Bowl. They played him outside, inside, one-on-ones. He locked up on the outside. I mean, he was very impressive. But when they went to team, they had him more lined up in the slot.
How about this dude from Baylor? Sort of a hybrid, sort of a very Jimmy Ward-like guy.
Yeah, Jalen Petrie.
Yeah, let's have 2 Jimmy Wards back there, right? Then you can really interchange those guys.
Yeah, another guy that's extremely versatile with his usage. You know, I have a guy who gives me scouting reports on Baylor and South Carolina guys. He's really plugged in. He has not steered me wrong, and he raves about Petrie and the person that he is, the player that he is, raves about him. Said he's not a guy that you want to have out in space too much. Looks at him more as like a Swiss Army knife. So I'm not exactly sure. I have to go back through the messages and see exactly where, you know, his strong suit is. But they used him a lot in coverage at the Senior Bowl, and I thought he held up. I think he's a guy, safety, that brings definitely some nickel value. And like you said, kind of a Jimmy Ward type guy. Poor man's Jimmy. We'll say that.
Sort of and by the way, this guy's a free agent too. A Tyrann Mathieu, a Honey Badger style player. Yeah. What about going out and getting Tyrann Mathieu? It might cost you $15-16 million a year.
I think what the 49ers are craving for most, especially the fans, is someone who can take the ball away, someone who could create big plays. And Honey Badger, he's one of the best in the league at that.
Yeah, I can't see him spending that much money on safeties. What about Eric Reed's little brother, Justin Reed? There was a Twitter question about Justin Reed. At a certain point, though, I think you just bring Tartt back, right? If you're going to go to a cheaper, lower level free agent, although Justin Reed's a lot cheaper, younger a lot younger, maybe not cheaper than Jaquiski Tartt. Probably costs a little bit more than Jaquiski Tartt, actually.
Yeah, I mean, he has the speed, he has the range, he does a lot of really things very well. Versatile safety, probably even more athletic than his brother Eric Reed was.
Oh yeah,
I heard him
definitely.
talking on the radio this morning. I was listening to him. They were asking him questions about the whole process of becoming a free agent and all that. And it's weird. He talked about all these other guys he talked to, and it's like not one time did he mention Eric Reed. And I'm like, you didn't mention your brother at all in this interview.
Any other names, whether it's day 2, day 3, corner, safety, any favorite prospects that Crock got an eye on in the NFL draft?
Verone McKinley, he might be like a day 3 safety coming out of Oregon, but he was like either tied or led the league or college football in interceptions. Somebody takes the ball away. Not sure if he's going to test through the roof, but really smart, versatile type safety. Like him a lot. There's some cornerbacks. I don't know how fast they're going to fly off the board, but obviously you have the big dogs, right? You got the Derek Stingley, the Sauce Gardner, Andrew Booth, Roger McCreary, who I mentioned, Kyer Elam. But after that, Trent McDuffie played a lot of off zone at Washington, someone that people are anticipating testing very well. He's someone who could be around day 2 for the 49ers. Darion Kendrick, really up and down at Clemson, transferred to Georgia. He's okay. And Jermaine Walker, I think he's going to be a day 3 guy. But
what about this Tariq Woolen guy who's sort of got the Ahkello Witherspoon profile where he's like super tall, 6'3", and they say he's going to fly, but kind of raw, didn't really have the best production, maybe a raw project that you have try to develop and see if he can fight his way up the depth chart and maybe you have a future starter.
So he's a guy 6'4", 205 pounds, and he's a legit 6'4", maybe a shade under, like officially, but they think he's going to jump out the building. They think he's going to run in the 4.2s, potentially low 4.3s. Extremely raw. He's a guy that converted over from receiver to corner. Now, sometimes with guys like this, with those really long movements, it's hard for them to transition in and out of breaks and stuff. And I thought that was one thing that made Ahkello Witherspoon really good. He had really good feet, really good change of direction, but it also led to some inconsistencies. And if you look around the league, how many good corners are 6'3" and up? Is not really something that you see a whole lot unless you are Richard Sherman, who could play so well with his mind, understanding route concepts, reading guys down. Antonio Cromartie, another guy built like that. And I actually talked to Tariq Woolen about his movement skills, his ability, how does he plan on getting better with that, and told him, hey, you need to tap in with Antonio Cromartie. So I actually set it up. I hit Cromartie. I was like, hey, this is my former teammate. Let me hit him up. I hit up Crow. Crow said, hell yeah. Send him to me whenever he's back in Texas. I'll work with him. If Woolen did not take Cromartie up on that offer, he's off the board.
Yeah, you take him off the board. I like this tall corners collective. Like, don't come unless you're 6'1", right? 6'1" and over cornerbacks working out together, trying to help each other out. Brotherhood. I like that.
Yeah, you understand the challenges of being longer like that. There's some pros with it, but there are some challenges with short area quickness. Trying to deal with that. Maybe smaller receivers that are quicker and shiftier. How do you play? Understanding how to use your length in your body and shield guys off and play it. There's nobody better to learn from than Antonio Cromartie. So if he didn't take him up on that offer, he's off my board.
All right, there you go. Some names to watch for the 49ers in the secondary this offseason. I have a feeling there's going to be some new blood there, maybe free agency and draft at both safety and cornerback for your San Francisco 49ers. Thanks for making Locked On 49ers your first listen every day. Now, make your second listen Locked On NFL Draft with Eric Crocker and Ryan Tracy coming at you every day. Insights and analysis from college football prospects and NFL front offices. Check out the Peacock and Williamson NFL show as well, breaking down the entire league every single day, featuring myself and former NFL scout Matt Williamson. All those podcasts are free and available wherever you find your podcasts. Croc and I back Monday right here. Locked On 49ers.